Hi, my name's Linda. I'm an evolutionary astrologer and Taoist body mind spirit integrator. I wanted to talk with you guys today and share a little bit about having Pluto in the 11th house. In evolutionary astrology, Pluto is the soul's desire. And those who have Pluto in the 11th, their soul has desired to decondition the ego for many incarnations. Before I dive into this content, though, I wanted to let you guys know that I am doing personal birth chart readings as well as transit consultations and birth chart counseling. So if you like my videos and you feel like you could benefit from working with me, feel free to reach out. My email is in the description section of this video. Okay, so Pluto in the 11th. 11th relates to the archetype of Aquarius. There's a lot of different themes with Aquarius. Some of those themes are deconditioning. It's the authentic person. Who am I apart from what others? Those others could be my parents, my culture, my religion, society. Any other has told me that I should be or have to be. Another theme is trauma. Aquarius is associated with those realms outside of consciousness. The sign that comes before Capricorn in EA represents the structure of one's consciousness. And when we go past that, we're looking at the subconscious mind, which is where trauma resides. Another Aquarian theme is larger groups, specifically groups that share a common purpose. So things like nonprofits, spiritual groups, philosophical groups, not so much friend groups, but anything that has to do with the community and the larger whole as a group would be ruled by Aquarius. So those with Pluto on the 11th, some of the shared common experiences that they'll have relate to anything that helps them to meet this desire of their soul, which is to decondition. So anything that does that, and there's so many different ways that can be brought about. Some people go to therapy, others decondition themselves through some type of traumatic experience. There's so many different ways. Because this desire to decondition has been something that the soul has been working on in previous lives, they're going to have memories of persecution and or trauma related to their willingness and the courage they've had to show their true self. If you think back in history, you can imagine the types of traumas and persecution that might be related to such a desire. I mean, things today, especially in the United States and different countries, it's a lot safer to really express and show your individuality and your uniqueness. But in history and in certain parts of the world, that really hasn't been the norm. It hasn't been the case. And a lot of times, the souls who have Pluto on the 11th, even when they're kids, they just have this sense that they're different from everybody else. And maybe they don't know why they feel this way, or they can't put their finger on it, but they just feel like they're different. And a lot of times that can lead to isolation, just this inability to really feel comfortable in their own skin, to be who they are, and to express that with their friends and family and anyone in their social circle. Another common trait for people with Pluto on the 11th is they'll have these really unique interests or hobbies, things that not a lot of other people seem to be interested in. One hobby that or interest that most people have is sports. That's a pretty common interest to have. And although someone with Pluto in the 11th could be into sports, they're also going to have certain, like these fringe hobbies. For example, stamp collecting. They might be really into that. And a lot of people aren't, and they might fear that others might view them as weird or eccentric because, this person knows who they are, they know what they like, and they know that it's really different from everybody else, and everybody else is, they have different desires going on. Their desire isn't to decondition, so most everybody walking around is conditioned to, have this cookie cutter image and persona. And because the Pluto in the 11th house soul doesn't understand, that this is the desire of their soul because it's subconscious, they can think, well, what's wrong with me? Everybody else seems so normal and everybody else likes the same things and wears the same clothes and, acts the same way. And, it can just leave them feeling different. And I think that's a big part of why they do feel different because they can, they from their soul's history and past incarnations, they've had this experience of, having to stand out on their own as a unique individual. And then they come into the earth plane again and they see that, everybody is not, everybody is not doing that. Everybody seems to be following the crowd and the herd. And that can leave them feeling like there's something wrong with them or they're just completely different from everybody else. When in reality, every person is different and unique. It's just about who's showing it and who is not. So in that way, Pluto in the 11th, once it does find its courage through its polarity of Leo, which we'll go into in a minute, then in that way it can be a role model. These souls can be role models for others and show that, it's okay to be different and it's okay to show who you really are. That gives permission to other people to do the same. And this feeling of being different a lot of times can make Pluto in the 11th house people not want attention. It's the polarity here is Leo, and Leo is all about attention. And I say it's Leo because the polarity of the 11th house is the 5th house, and Leo rules the 5th house, just in case anybody's wondering about that. I didn't want there to be any confusion on that. But with Pluto in the 11th, there can be that social isolation that if when they do have the few friends that they do have or the groups that they belong to, maybe they feel comfortable when nobody's eyes are on them. They have that instinctive urge to create, which is represented by the Leo polarity as well. And they want to do that, but it has to be, it has to be for, it has to be done where nobody's watching them. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to have to deal with other people's judgments. And a lot of times this, causes them to go into these specific groups. Maybe with the stamp collecting example, maybe there's a meetup of fellow stamp collectors, and in that space of their fellow, that small fellow tribe of weirdos, quote unquote, they can, share their hobby, they can feel more comfortable showing who they are. And then it's okay for them, to have other people's attention. So how does a Pluto in the 11th house person get to that Leo 5th house polarity? How do they make the journey from being this, deconditioned, individuated, true, amazing self to then using that newfound sense of, self and autonomy and authenticity? How do they use that to make attention from others feel okay? And how do they use that to creatively actualize? The way that this happens will be different for every person who has Pluto in the 11th, and it has to do with your nodes. So the nodes are the gateway. Once the person activates their north node energy, this in turn activates Pluto's polarity, which in this instance is that energy of Leo. Those who have Pluto in the 11th, the Pluto's polarity point is that 5th house Leo energy. So if you have Pluto in the 11th, or you know someone who does, that's the key to figuring out how this is going to happen. It's the journey from the south node, the ego that they used to be and currently are, becoming the new ego, the north node. Who am I destined to become? And as we know, those, the south node and the north node, the past and current identity versus the future identity, those are always integrated over time. So once the north node future self-identity is activated, and that can happen in lots of different ways, and if that's something that you're interested in exploring, you can look up those nodal energies of yourself or your loved one online, or you can get with an astrologer for a reading. But in essence, what happens once the north node is activated, then the person comes into those Leo energies. They're okay being noticed. They're okay being recognized. And they, a lot of times, develop new skills, new talents, new hobbies that are creative in nature. With the 11th house in Aquarius, it's about service to the whole. It's about philanthropy, which is another theme I forgot to mention with Aquarius. Aquarius is the water bearer, like in the picture shown here. Bringing the gods, teaching man, all these amazing things, all these different forms of technology and different sciences that are going to help man progress. And I think what the Pluto and 11th house souls, the biggest thing they have to teach, again, is that it's okay to be yourself, and that when you do that, when you step out of the fear of, being judged, being persecuted, being whatever the fear is, and you take ownership of your own life, you become as this God, you become as a water bearer, bringing whatever gifts you have to your fellow man in that philanthropic way. And somehow, by accessing the polarity, there's this creative component. Now it's not only about helping people. That's the Aquarius part. That's, using the individual genius to help man. But the Aquarius part is learning how to accept attention and recognition, and, just being okay with being seen, And having that for oneself, it can't always just be about others. It can't be so selfless all the time. With the Leo polarity, the Pluto in the 11th house person learns that it's okay to be recognized and seen for all the wonderful things that they have to, all the skills, talents, whatever that they have to share with others. And that's what actually happens. Once the polar opposite energy is activated, the person will feel okay being seen because they'll know that having the wisdom of Leo's polarity Aquarius, they know that ultimately whatever they do have to bring to the table, it's not really about them. Their ego has been removed from the equation enough to where, they know if, okay, I have a talent and I put myself out there, it's not going to crush me if I have a bunch of, haters online or people leaving nasty comments or, just trolls, whatever the case might be. So, Aquarius is aloof in the emotional sense. It doesn't. It's an air sign, so it's very cerebral. It doesn't get caught up in, oh, my poor ego, it's going to be so crushing if somebody says something bad about me or doesn't like me. That's all the opposite stuff. That's the stuff of Leo, in its immature form, without its polarity. That's what Leo is about. It's about, right after Cancer, where the emotional body is developed, it's about developing that sense of self that's separate from the home and family and is going to go out into the world. And that time of the teenager, as we all know, is really, just to be embarrassed is like the most crushing thing in the world, to be embarrassed by your peer group or to be seen as different. So that would be more of the shadow manifestation of the Leo energy. But because you're going from Aquarius, which already has that that detached, sober, mature view of self as opposed to others, once Aquarius activates its opposite energy of Leo, it's not going to have those same issues. There's going to be a maturity there, a wisdom, a balance, and it's about learning how to be okay with being seen and appreciated for what one does have to offer, and that will be okay and feel okay for the Pluto in the 11th house soul who has activated their Leo polarity point of Pluto. So in that way, there's not this hiding in groups anymore. It's not, I'm just a member of a stamp collecting club. Now maybe it's, I'm a stamp collecting sensation on YouTube. Or, whatever scenario your mind can think of. It's about going from that group mentality and hiding one's individuality inside of larger groups to, okay, I'm mature now. I understand. I've experienced enough deconditioning to stand out on my own and to be okay with being the center of attention for once in my life. I've done enough work on myself, or some outside force has done enough work on me, that I'm a reborn person, I'm a liberated person, and I can stand on my own 2 feet now. and pursue my dreams and goals. As myself and for myself. And that's ultimately the journey of those with Pluto in the 11th. So, this journey that I just described, it's a good way to know where you are, or where the 11th house Pluto person is on their karmic growth journey. Are they at the beginning? Are they stuck? Are they blocked from accessing that Leo polarity because they haven't activated their North Node energies yet? Are they, have they accessed their Leo polarity? And if they have, if you see somebody out there who's a unique individual and isn't afraid to show who they really are and is doing that in creative ways that help other people, that's a sure sign that this person has come here, has done what they've come here to do this time around. Those who have Pluto in the 11th, this journey is really rewarding, but the journey, although, if you can get past the conditioning, if you can have the courage to, undo any conditioning that you have, rework your patterns, work through your shadows, all that stuff can be really terrifying. But I think it's really worth it in the end, because to be able to, just feel comfortable in your own skin and to be a way shower for others to do that, that's a really amazing gift, not only for oneself, but all of our fellow brothers and sisters on this planet.